acted very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the 7th episode of the War Cry podcast. I am your host, Yahola Tiger, aka the One Man Band. Just hanging out. It's a couple of days before Christmas, and this is coming out Friday at 8 p.m. And just kind of keeping it with the, I guess you could say, what would I say, holiday spirit. We're going to be talking about Christmas entities and Christmas beings. And different things like that, and kind of all over the place. I know, everyone wants to talk about Krampus, which we'll talk about Krampus a little bit, and maybe, make share a story or two that I've heard, or, you just never know. You just never truly know with this podcast. But before we do, some things I kind of got on my mind. So over the last, I'm currently on vacation, allegedly. But that's okay. So, last week I had started watching the new Casey Anthony documentary on Peacock. And I am not a huge fan, of that case. I remember watching it like throughout the day, and I remember Top Mom, that's what Nancy Grace called her. But I never truly knew the story, like what happened. Like I never truly the 30 days, thing, and she did report her daughter missing for 30 days. And so I'm kind of almost taken aback by some of the stuff that people were, like the media. People were comparing it to OJ, comparing it to Michael Jackson in his court cases and trials. By the way, no one is beating out O.J. Simpson. No one is beating out O.J. Simpson. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. That is like a legendary line that I use still in my daily life. And I don't even think I was even alive. But anyways, so the Casey Anthony case to me is just so fascinating to see how, back then, what the norms were and what people said about people and, things like that. But then also too, you kind of fast forward to now, and the same people that are saying the things they said back then are saying the exact opposite of what they said back then. And so it's just kind of interesting to me, I didn't know that, I guess like I said, I don't know, I know some people are probably going to be like, dang, you're going to be defending her like that. But I don't know what happened. I truly don't know. I was really sitting there trying to kind of clip things together and really trying to, me and Betsy were really going hard and discussing it and really trying to piece it together, because the way the documentary shoots out, it does do it in chronological order, but they do it in a way that's kind of almost confusing. And so as you guys know, Casey Anthony was put on trial for killing her daughter, Kaylee. And basically how that, the daughter went missing, and then Casey Anthony didn't call the police for 31 days. And then finally she called the police, and they found evidence of a decaying body, and they found all this evidence on her, the computer searches, all this stuff. And then they found her body, later on, 90 days after. But I just find it so interesting how you have multiple layers of lying. I don't understand. I can understand lying at a surface level. Hey, did you eat my M&Ms? And you ate the M&Ms, but you tell them no. But then there's a deeper level than that. There's multiple layer lies that Casey told. The fact that she was that she had a nanny called Franny or whatever it is, or whatever her So basically, went to a friend's house, basically a friend's house that she was at, and she was saying that she had a nanny that lived here, but the nanny never lived there. And then she said that she worked at Universal Studios, but she didn't work there. Or she worked there previously. And I like it in the documentary that she actually explains why she said those things and why she lied. Because I know everyone and their mama, if you got pulled over and the cop goes, "Hey, you were speeding," and you go, "What? No, I wasn't." Like, everyone's done that. Like, you can put on your saint, your halo and all that stuff later, but you can go ahead and admit that to yourself now. Everyone's done that, and so I can understand that a little bit. But one thing too that was kind of really crazy is the abuse allegations she brought up against her dad and her brother, and her brother kind of really didn't even kind of say, "Oh, I didn't do that." He didn't really kind of deny it. Well, I thought that was kind of interesting too. Like, okay, maybe there is some credence to that, and that creates, this over here. But there's a lot of things that correlate with her dad and her, and that's, to me, I think the ultimate problem with this whole case is I think Kaylee probably drowned in the pool because allegedly in the documentary, I'll spoil it for you here now, but basically, Casey was so kind of shook that her daughter was wet. Allegedly, her dad had Kaylee in his arms and gave her to Casey, and she was cold and wet. So that's kind of one of the things that I kind of think, she might have drowned. But then they're like the abuse allegations that she had against her father. She basically said her father would press a pillow against her face and almost knock her out. And that's another theory that was said on that documentary too as well. So I don't know, what truly happened. To me, it's just so kind of fascinating to see, that 10 years now, like 10 years later, exactly 10 years later, 11 years, whatever it is. It's just kind of interesting to see how, like, the court of public opinion is still out strong. But then some people also kind of believe her too, so I don't know. It's up for your guys' interpretation, but that's on Peacock. Another true crime, that I watched, we watched. I think it was 2 nights ago, and it was basically about, and it's on Netflix, and don't search or something. It's about basically someone who was calling into McDonald's, Taco Bell, Bueno, Arby's, all these fast food chains, and basically acting as a police officer and telling people to get butt naked. And people were doing it. They were getting butt naked. And so I just, that's another one I kind of watched, and it's sad, man. Like, I remember, because I'm going to reveal this information about me, but I used to work at McDonald's back when I was 16 years old, and I had some crazy managers. Like, I had some truly crazy managers who'd be like, "Hey, I need you to go do this, this, and this." And you're like, "Dang it, I'm like, I'm in my McDonald's uniform, and you have me doing this." But, like, I can see that. Like, I literally can see why people were like, these younger people. So essentially, the first one that they talked about was this girl. She was about 18 years old, and this manager. So they get the call, and the manager says, "Hey, one of your employees is stealing. She looks like this." Well, basically, the only girl in the place that looked like that was this 18-year-old girl. So then they proceed to do this strip search, and she got completely butt naked, and a bunch of crazy stuff happening. And I can just see I can, like, almost not put myself in that situation, but also kind of see myself as like, wow, like, some people will literally listen to authority at any point, no matter how weird and how strange it is. People will do that. And I just got a good kick out of that, especially like the first. I ain't gonna lie, I died laughing, because it's almost unbelievable that someone say, "Hey, you need, like, this is the police. You need to get butt naked, and we need to see if there's any money." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like dying. I'm like laughing, but it's like sad. But that's another one. It's on Netflix. It just came out. It's like Don't Search something. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that's kind of the two things that had really kind of been sticking in my mind about, I guess, really my watching habits. I'm a huge true crime guy, and so that's just two things that I thought was pretty interesting that you guys should go check out. I'm an audiobook guy too, and there's a book that I just got done listening to, and it was called Apocalypse 7. If you like a kind of an alien type of weird, like, time travel type, book, that's the book for you. But you guys know how I like to, just transition. I'm just getting right to it. So, like I said, guys, today we're going to be talking about a little, some spiritual Christmas beings, and kind of the legends and histories and things like that. And a lot of this stuff is over kind of in Eastern Europe. You do have some of the Nordic tribes and legends, and then you also obviously have the most legendary of them all, in Krampus, and that can even be here in America too as well. And I know there are some different things that that we can associate with Christmas and being kind of creepy, but I'm going to start off with one of the oldest, and so if you guys out there have heard of the Yule lads, and that's essentially, you guys you're like Snow White, essentially. Basically, it's 13 Icelandic trolls. This is coming out of Iceland, and they all have their different personalities, much like Snow White. And I cannot pronounce the actual, I'm going to, and you guys are probably like, dang, he's killing that. But Yolasovinar, or the Yule lads. So they have their own distinct personalities, and in ancient times, they stole things and they caused trouble around Christmas time. They were usually used to scare kids into behaving. And now, there's another kind of being that I'll talk about later on. It'll be the Yule cat, that they're associated with them. And then there's the mother. I can't pronounce that name either, but they're all associated together. But usually, most times, like this is, like I said, based in Iceland, Norwegian, places like that. But basically, like I said, basically they cause a lot of mischief and really, was meant to scare kids to get them to act right. The next part, like I said, I mentioned just a second ago about the Yule cat. Now this was kind of interesting to me. I love, a good kind of, I guess you'd say like a beast or a creature. But basically, the Yule cat, or they call another name for it here, is Christmas cat, is not really based on nice, how most of these kind of beings are. It's mainly either they're good or evil, and they're try to scare kids. This cat, it'll eat you, according to legend. So basically, how the tradition goes, the Icelandic tradition goes, is that those who are finished with their work on time receive new clothes for Christmas, while those who were lazy did not. So basically, to encourage kids to work hard, parents told the tale of the Yule cat, saying that basically if those kids were lazy, and they didn't get at least one new item for Christmas, these kids would be sacrificed to Yule cat. Imagine, that's kind of like us Indians, where we kind of say, if you go out there, LP gonna get you, or you go outside after dark, Bigfoot will get you, or you don't go out in them woods at night. That's kind of similar, but dang, to say they get eat up like that. But basically, they would say if the kid didn't work hard, they basically got sacrificed to the Yule cat, which also and it usually meant for chores, not like actual like work. But there's a poem written about this cat that suggests that the children that would help out and they were like kind of needy, really needed some things, could put in extra time, and basically receive, basically a pardon from the Yule cat. But like I said, that also goes into there's another kind of thing that kind of shoots off to that, is basically a 5-day work week. And that's kind of where that kind of came in, was a 5-day work week, and which is kind of weird that this Christmas tale will lead into like a 5-day work week. I guess, and I guess if a kid worked overtime, they basically got a 4-day work week. So that's kind of interesting too, as well, off that. But kind of connecting all those two beings together is basically, her name is Grilla, and that's the mother of the Yule lads and the Yule cat, and it's the one that protects the Yule cat. She's basically described as an ogre, Basically kidnaps, cooks, and eats children who don't obey their parents. To me, that also kind of think of Hansel and Gretel too as well. That's a German kind of legend. But she became associated with Christmas back in the in the 17th century, where she was basically assigned the mother of the Yule lads in legend. But according to the actual traditional legend of Grilla, and I am totally butchering that. I apologize. But according to legend, Grilla had 3 different husbands and 72 children. Imagine trying to live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 72 kids. I got one, and I'm like, dang. Like, all right, is it bedtime yet? Is it nap time? I'm out here fighting for my life. No, I'm just playing. But basically, these 72 kids were not being looked out after, and they caused trouble ranging from just basic mischief, harmless fun, to basically murder. And the Yule Cat lived with the mother, Grilla. And basically this ogress, I guess, or you call it like Shrek, but a girl, Fiona, is such a troublemaker that they basically blamed the eruption of that volcano over there on her. They're saying that she was mad at everybody and basically caused that volcano. So I just find that super interesting, how, like, I look at, like I said, native tribes, and we have all these different superstitions, like, not supposed to eat in the dark, or not supposed to be, not supposed to leave your food out overnight without it being covered or stored away, or, I'm just trying to think of some, like I say, playing out not at night, or, answering the door at night. There's all these different, or, answering the door after a knock. So there's all these different legends, that I just find so interesting, especially, when it comes to that. But one kind of a legend, that kind of makes me really think about, and this is kind of goes back to kind of Christmas and Santa Claus and Krampus, is in Germany and Austria, they had this witch. His name was Frau Perchu, who would hand out rewards and punishments during the 12 days of Christmas, which is the 25th through January 6th. And she is best known for her gruesome punishment of sinfulness, what she does is she rips out your internal organs and replaces them with garbage. The ugly image of Perchu shows up in Christmas in Austria a lot of times, and it's somewhat like Krampus. There's a little bit of a difference with that, especially when it comes to describing this being in this tradition. But Perchu's story is thought to be descended from the legendary Alpine goddess of nature, basically who tends the forest most years and deals with human beings only during Christmas. In modern celebrations, Perchuta, I'm pronouncing this all wrong too as well, may show up during the Alpine Festival, which is just right before Lent. They're having kind of a connection with an Italian Christmas being. So the Italian Christmas being or witch, La Befana, but she really isn't a monster. She's ugly, but she's a good witch who leaves presents. So that's kind of like a yin and yang. I was trying to pronounce that, man. They're going to put me in the Hall of Fame for the lack of being able to pronounce different, like, non-English words, man. I'm getting eat up right now. I'm getting beat up like Muhammad Ali but I'm gonna make a comeback. I'm gonna pronounce one of these right. But basically, those two are kind of go hand in hand. One is Italian, but the witch Fra is a good and evil type being, a witch, and so that's kind of interesting that those are kind of connected with that. And like I said, I'm running through these kind of quick, and I'm like 10 minutes in, I guess 20 minutes in, however long I've been going. But the next one, that like I said, it's kind of funny. Belsnickel was actually impersonated in the office. Dwight did an impersonation of this German being, an entity. But basically, it's a southwestern German lord who's traveled to the United States and survives in Pennsylvania Dutch custom. He comes to children sometime before Christmas wearing tattered old clothes, raggedy fur. He carries a switch to frighten the children and candy to reward the kids for good behavior. In modern visits, the switch is only used for noise and to warn the children they still have time to be good before Christmas. And then all the children get candy if they're polite about it, But basically, it comes from that word Belsnickel, which is Belsen, which means to wallop. Dang, and nickel for St. Nicholas. So that's pretty cool. And so this is Hans Trapp is kind of an anti-Santa being who hands out punishment to bad children in certain kind of parts of France. And the legend says that the Trapp was actually a real man, and he was greedy, evil, and rich. And that kind of, like I said, that kind of comes over here to Scrooge. Basically, he worshipped Satan, golly, who worshipped Satan and was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. He was exiled into the forest where he preyed upon children disguised as a scarecrow, with straw jutting from his clothing. He was about to eat one boy he captured, and then he was struck by lightning and killed. A punishment from God. Still, he does visit young children before Christmas dressed as a scarecrow to scare them into good behavior. Man, that's pretty creepy. Hey, I mean, just later. I remember, and that's kind of telling some Christmas, kind of a Christmas story, but I remember being a kid and, we'd be looking outside because it gets dark early, and man, as soon as that sun go down, like, God, it's about time to go to bed. I got to make sure, get nice and rested for Santa. You'd be trying to get in bed at like 5:30. And imagine if you're trying to get in bed and it just gets dark, dark outside, and you look and somebody's standing outside your window and you're making sure you're a good kid. That's pretty wicked. But like I said, there's all these different types of kind of Eastern, European. You got some in France, Italy. And it's kind of crazy the connection that it has to us here now. I think it's, kind of interesting how our stories have kind of been, how those stories have kind of been digested and made into something nice and, not as evil and not as scary. But one thing too that the holidays bring up, everyone kind of gets all, nice, and everybody's ready for Santa. The ultimate and the most well-known of these kind of evil, anti-Santa Claus beings is Krampus. Basically, as a tool to encourage good behavior in children. Santa serves the carrot, Krampus is the stick. Krampus is the anti-Santa Claus, and he may look like a devil or a wild alpine beast, depending on the region, materials that are available for Krampus's costume or what he wears. Krampus is also kind of known to have basically kind of dead or rotting flesh, and he also has these really, really long claws, kind of almost like rake-like hands. He has horns like a goat, and he's also said to be able to have basically almost the outfit like how we envision Santa Claus having, is the red and kind of a tattered clothing like that. Also too, he's also known in some aspects as to having chains, like he was being chained up all year and then he broke loose just for one night. And so that's kind of different ways to describe him. Some people also say he's hairy, black or brown hair, cloven hooves. Now, I always think, of that when, people always hear DW or, things like that. But, these kind of Pan or two, like Goatman. But basically, he symbolizes the devil, essentially, is what it comes down to. And so, those are just kind of interesting appearances. Krampus Night is also celebrated December 5th, the eve of St. Nicholas Day in Austria and other parts of Europe. public celebrations that night. They may have many Krampus outfits. One thing too that I was doing some research for this, I always thought it was kind of funny that dang, like, imagine, you always kind of see, I've seen it here in Tulsa, but you kind of see a drunk Santa Claus kind of, just sauced out. Like, I think we saw one yesterday. He was basically had a little knapsack, and you could tell he was a little sauced out, kind of walking down the road in the middle of the day, making sure all those presents get to your kids. But basically, in these traditions that they have over there, they have these like festivals, and as I mentioned before, they'll have like a lot of people out in the streets. But like, I guess it's turned into like some type of drinking game. So now on that night, it's like known in multiple cities or in that Europe area and Eastern Europe and Austria and places like that, to be like a drunken night, to where you fight, you basically commit crime, guised as Krampus. And so I just find that kind of interesting to, kind of share some of that information. The holidays for me are a little bit weird now. And as you lose relatives, and I know everybody can kind of feel this way, but as you lose relatives and people who mean a lot to you, it just sometimes it doesn't feel like it should. It doesn't feel like how it used to be. And I think one thing that I'm trying to battle, especially having my little girl, is I'm trying to trying to push forward, basically. I'm trying to do things like, my parents did for me, and, my grandparents did for me. And so I try to pull forward. And I know sometimes it can be hard, especially around holidays. And sometimes, if anybody out there is battling with falling off the wagon, it's just usually a time that happens because like I said, things happen. You lose family members. And so, I just, that's kind of what my thing is that I do, is I'm just trying to push forward. I'm just trying to keep going, and that's kind of all we can really do is keep moving forward. But that's the episode, guys. I know, it's kind of, I was butching up words, and dang, I was really doing them crazy. But I appreciate you listening in, guys. Once again, you can find me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger. You can find me on TikTok. TikTok announcement. As of right now, we're almost at 1,000 followers on TikTok, which is amazing. I've been posting a lot of old school Cherokee Nation content on there that's kind of got lost. I posted that, you guys saw it if you watched YouTube on the last episode. I actually posted some of the stuff that Derek Morris had sent to me, and to us guys over at the Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation. So go check that out, guys. There's a lot of people have been really liking that old Cherokee throwback videos I've been posting. So, like I said, One Man Band on TikTok, or One Man Band 918 on TikTok. Go check it out. Go be that 1,000 follower. No, but we're almost at 1,000 followers on there. I mentioned on Facebook earlier that the podcast we're over 800 views, listen, plays, all that stuff. We're almost at 1,000. That's amazing to me. I just never thought anybody would be sitting here listening to me, but. I had to always kind of give a little bit of a shout out to Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation and our podcast over there, because, I always could talk. I could always tell you a story. I could always hold a conversation with you. But, I think it kind of took me to the next level with doing that and kind of jump starting this podcast. I know we're on a little bit of a hiatus with that podcast. We're going to actually be recording next week, the 27th. So that'll be out that next following week, I believe. But we'll be talking about some things that happened over the course of of our hiatus, and I know Chris has mentioned wanting to talk about some of his investigations that he's been on, because I know he's been around. So, we'll be back, and we'll be back stronger than ever. It's just we took a little bit of a break because of holidays, but I'm rocking and rolling with this podcast, and I appreciate you guys listening. And I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's it. But happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you like to say, and I'll catch you on the next one.